Hey, happy Monday. Welcome into Morning in the Valley. I'm Jeff Bidwell. Glad you are with us today here on Monday, May the 5th. We're here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 a.m. Through the off season, covering Missouri Valley Conference men's and women's college basketball. Coming up today in about 10 minutes, we will be joined by new Valparaiso women's head coach Courtney Boyd. It's been quite a whirlwind for Coach Boyd here in the last month or so. After leading Quincy to the Division II national tournament, had no idea she was going to be a Division I head coach as we entered May, but here we are. So we'll talk with Coach Boyd about certainly the last wild couple of weeks of her life and trying to get this Valparaiso program back on track here in the Missouri Valley and get them towards the top of the conference. As always, if you could do us a favor, wherever you're watching us today, X, Facebook, or YouTube, head over to YouTube for us and subscribe to this. Just search Morning in the Valley. Click that little subscribe button. It helps get it out to more Missouri Valley Conference loving fans around the country. And we would certainly appreciate that. Today, a quiet day, at least on the women's side of college basketball, as it is a recruiting shutdown week for the women for the next 7 days. So no calls, no emails, no texts, no visits, no evaluations, no anything. It's all very quiet, no contact. And I know for the coaches, if nothing else, it's many places, it's finals week, it's going into graduation week, but gives an opportunity for coaches to take a deep breath for a moment as you come out of this. The season ends, portal opens, and then you're just trying to replenish your roster as quickly as possible, because here in about 3-4 weeks, summer workouts, summer classes, all that begins, in the 2025-26 season officially begins. Headlines this morning as we start with the Aces of Evansville and head coach David Ragland, who was with us on Friday, talking about sort of the progression that his program has made over his 3 years there in Evansville, going from 1 conference win in his first year to 6 to 8, trying to continue that. And Coach Ragland has gotten a commitment from a young man named Alex Hemingway, who is a transfer from Vanderbilt, a high-level kid. He has spent 6 years at the high major level, his first 5 years at Clemson, and then last year at Vanderbilt. And so he is going to come home. He's from Newburgh, Indiana, just down the road from Evansville, but he is coming home for year number 7 of college hoops. But it's been a starstruck run for him. Obviously, you have the COVID season, but then in the 2023-24 season at Clemson, his 5th and final year, he only played 5 games because of an injury. Last year, he transfers to Vanderbilt, never plays because of injury. So you got a player here who's basically missed 2 straight years. But when he played, he was really good. 6'4" guard, again, out of Newburgh, Indiana, 43% three-point shooter for his career. And so if he's healthy and he's able to contribute, this is something that can really bolster the backcourt there for David Ragland and the Aces. We have talked about in terms of commitments, and now they have progressed to signings at Drake. Eric Henderson continuing to reload his cupboard there in Des Moines. And the first being, we talked about this commitment a week or 2 ago, but it's now official. Isaiah Carr, the 7-foot junior center, 12 games last year at Denver, ended up missing most of the season because of some upper body injuries, as they were described. But before he got hurt, averaged about 6.5 points per game, 4.5 rebounds per game. But again, you bet on the size, and at 7 foot, you're certainly going to take that. The other signee in Des Moines is Jayshawn Thomas, signing with the Bulldogs. He was at Charlotte last season. He is a 6'3" guard, 4th leading scorer on that 49ers team, 9.5 points, 3.5 rebounds, was a 42% field goal shooter, 36.8 from beyond the arc. So you got a 7-footer on the outside or on the inside, and here comes a 6'3" guard there on the perimeter for Coach Henderson. But a good pickup there with Jayshawn Thomas coming in out of Charlotte. we talked about our valley to valley moves, and that has happened in Carbondale as Isaiah Stafford has officially signed after he, of course, played at Valparaiso, was the leading scorer at Valparaiso in 2024. Missed all of last season because of a knee injury. There was a chance he was going to come back, but the decision was made. We're going to just sit him out and let him get healthy. Well, he is healthy, and then he hopped into the portal, and he has moved on now to SIU. Again, a 17-point per game score 2 years ago, and I said last week that this could be as impactful of a talent acquisition as we've seen in the conference this year from this portal cycle. Just from a guy, not a guy that is a 2-point a game scorer at a high level. He's not a 20-point a game scorer at a lower level. He got you 17 at this level, and so that is an exciting acquisition there for Coach Nagy in Carbondale. Again, the portal giveth, sometimes the portal taketh away. We have seen Devon Ellis from Valpo, also another player moving on. He's graduated. He is committed now to go on to Norfolk State. Averaged about 5 points a game for Roger Powell. But we have some more acquisitions as well for Coach Powell, and it's a big one. We talked about this last week with the commitment. Now it is officially signed, and it is Kobe Walker, 6'10", high school student out of Normal, Illinois. Got out of the backyard there of Illinois State, officially signed with Central Michigan. There was a coaching change there, reopened his recruitment, and now he is a member of the Beacons program. 6'10", a Class 4A first-team All-State player in the state of Illinois, 19 points a game, 12 rebounds a game, about a block and a half. He is bringing some muscle and some beef to the middle there at Valpo for Roger Powell. And this graphic here is – and I know I'm supposed to be like, hey, there's Kobe Walker, and that is a giant man. I just look at Roger Powell, and I was like, man, if we took the 11 Missouri Valley coaches and it was, we're going to throw them all in the UFC cage, buddy, my money is on Roger Powell. I'll take your money. If you want it. I mean, it may need to be 10-on-1. We talked about the whole, he is a beast. Look at that. I mean, those two guys walking in, I usually it's like, all right, you let the 7-footer get off the bus first. When you walk in, you're like, oh, that team is going to intimidate you. Roger Powell gets off the bus first. You're like, we're going to have a long day at the office, but a good signing there for Coach Roger Powell in Kobe Walker. Courtney Boyd, the new head coach at Valparaiso on the women's side. She will join us here coming up in just a few minutes. Elsewhere on the commitment side, a pair at Indiana State as we are continuing to Mark Mitchell is everybody got in the portal. And so he's almost just starting over here as he gets into year 2, but he's added a couple pieces here in the last couple of days, starting with Kennedy Ard, who has committed to the Sycamores, 5'10" freshman in high school. I believe she was a junior in high school. She committed to play her college hoops at Louisiana Monroe, decommitted before she ever got there, ended up signing with McLennan Community College in Waco, Texas, averaged about 8 points a game last year as a freshman with McLennan. But she is a 5'10" freshman, again, from Walker, Louisiana. She is coming to Terre Haute to play with the Sycamores. And the other commitment over the weekend is Tierney Kelsey, who is from Memphis, 5'6" guard, played her freshman season at Jackson State, averaged about 3.5 points per game, played in 30 games, shot 36% from three, not a high volume shooter, but took a couple a night and shot 36%. So a couple of good additions there, 5'6" guard, 5'10" forward, Tierney Kelsey, Kennedy Ard, going to play for Mark Mitchell at Indiana State. We talk about the additions back to the men's side now, and a departure. Janai Summers, who was a member of Matthew Graves' team there at Indiana State last year, averaged 5.7 points per game. He went into the portal at the end of the season. and he has committed to play at Sacramento State, and they have become sort of one of the stories around college basketball here in the last couple of weeks. Their new head coach, Mike Bibby, the former NBA guard, and maybe most significantly, and probably caught as much attention as anything, is their new general manager in the program, one Dr. Shaquille O'Neal. So Janai Summers certainly going into a unique atmosphere there out in Sacramento at Sacramento State with a lot of big names, a lot of big NBA guys there, and he has made the move out west to go play for Sacramento State. Neat deal this week for Jonathan Pierre, the first team all-league standout last season for Belmont. He has been invited to the G League Elite Camp, which starts, May the 9th, which is Friday, Saturday, Sunday, up in Chicago at the Wintrust Arena. The G League Elite Camp is essentially it's a 3-day event. It's kind of a mini combine in a lot of ways, where just checking a quick note here to make sure we're good. Okay. It's basically a pre-combine event in a lot of ways, where, guys go in there, they play 5-on-5, they get poked and prodded, and they are tested for strength and agility and all that in front of NBA scouts and G League scouts and coaches and executives and so on. It's essentially an opportunity for guys to go in and eventually, hopefully, impress enough folks that, hey, maybe down the line you're going to get a G League opportunity to try out there and get in. But there's also some golden tickets that are handed out that allow guys to go to the NBA Combine, which is also at the Wintrust Arena, which starts the last day on May 11th. So if guys are impressive enough those first couple of days, they sort of graduate from the G League Elite Camp and then get to go to the NBA Combine, and gives them an opportunity. The Combine goes on for a week. And again, another chance to, work out. And guys that probably, we're not talking first rounders in general, especially the guys that go to the Combine. It's kind of like the NFL. A lot of guys are like, well, I'm not going to jeopardize anything. I'm not going to throw. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to do whatever. And so a lot of times they just go and get measured, and then maybe do some interviews, and that's all. But an opportunity certainly for second round picks, and you get those free agent deals, be able to hook up with G League teams and so on. So Jonathan Pierre, 6'9", started at Division II Nova Southeastern. He won a national championship there, and then went on to Memphis for a season. Didn't play a lot there, and then came to Belmont, and obviously was fantastic this year. Just so good for that Bruin program. 14 points a game, 6.5 rebounds, 3.5 assists, and again, first team all Missouri Valley Conference. Was a 6'9" wing, and was just dynamic for Casey Alexander's bunch down there. So he's got an opportunity this week, Friday, Saturday, and then hopefully we'll be able to stick around a little bit longer and get to go to the NBA Combine. Let us see. Other news and notes from around the portal world. Charlie Miller, who walked on at Northern Iowa, certainly a very familiar name for the UNI faithful, as he is the grandson of one of the great coaches in UNI history, in Eldon Miller. Joined the team a couple of years ago as a walk-on, played 24 games in 2 years there for Ben Jacobson at Northern Iowa, but he has moved on, and he's going to go to Division II Northern Michigan, give himself a chance to play. And so certainly wish him the best as the next of his career. And then Elijah Elliott, who really, I think if you kind of, you audit, if you audit last year and what they were trying to do at SIU, and man, the struggles they had in November and December, a lot of it was because Elijah Elliott tore his ACL against Florida. And he was averaging 14 points a game, only played 5 games, but he has gone into the portal and he has committed to New Mexico State. All right, our guest is now with us. She is the new head coach of the Valparaiso Beacons, and it is Courtney Boyd. Coach, good morning. How are you today?
Not too bad. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you for being with us today. Have we reached a point now where someone says Valparaiso head coach Courtney Boyd and you're not like, oh, they're talking to me? Has the honeymoon part worn off a little?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know. I don't think we're there yet. I think we are just now starting to feel like our head is a little bit above water. So I haven't been in enough public places where they say, "Oh, are you the new head coach?" So I'm trying to stay a little incognito. So next time I talk to somebody, I sound like I've got it together.
Officially hired April the 4th, 1 month and 1 day ago. What has been the biggest change in your life in the last 31 days?
Wow. The biggest change has just been, trying to hit the ground running and understand all of the pieces that go along with what we're trying to do, putting together a staff and figuring out, who's going to fill what role on the team and who's back and how healthy we are and those types of things. Honestly, I think the biggest change would be doing it without going home to my family. I haven't seen them in 2.5 weeks. So I think that makes it a little bit harder. We're trying to get on a schedule though, and try to get this thing going. So I'm excited about it, but it's definitely different.
It is a quiet week in the recruiting world. Is this waking up today? Is it kind of maybe the first time you've been able to just take a breath after hitting the ground sprinting?
Yeah. Yes. It actually is. It's a breath of fresh air, to be honest with you. It's now we can kind of settle in. Like you said, I think that it'll hit now. Okay, this is what we're actually doing. This is, letting it settle in. But I think that the communication that we've had with coaches and players and, even people on campus, they put us in a really good spot to be able to have those extra hands. So today we're sitting down as a staff for where we are right now and trying to figure out what's next.
You have a degree in elementary education. 20 years ago, what did you think that was going to mean in your life? And when did you realize maybe it wasn't going to mean as much as mom and dad maybe thought it was going to?
Yeah. So, what did I think that was going to mean? I thought that was going to mean me working with other people and putting them in a really good spot to be successful. I know that I worked with some really successful coaches and teachers, and I thought, well, I could be part of the game in both ways. I think that I can, I love little kids. I love helping them. I love creating a great experience for them. So maybe this is the way that I can do it. And I was in the classroom for a very short time, and I really missed the competitive piece of everything. So when I loved math, I could teach them math, but it wasn't for me. So I tried to figure out a way to keep my competitive nature, sharing with everybody and have my experiences. But then I wanted to make sure that I was helping people along, teaching them, the ways that they could go about life and their future, but teaching it. It wasn't as competitive as I wanted it to be. So I needed to get back on the court.
Coaching is such a starving artist business in the beginning. And there are, you talk to folks that have been in it and eventually they get a break. And sometimes it's, they're overnight success stories that are 20 years in the making before they finally get their break. What was, from, you're an assistant SID at one point, as well as, you're in a grad assistant, you're a volunteer, you're all of this where I know you're not making any money and you're probably wondering like, how many more nights in a row can I eat ramen noodles for dinner here? But like, was there a point where you're like, I don't know if I can do this, or was this be damned, I'm getting to the finish line of this journey?
I think you nailed it on the head right there. It was when I woke up one morning and I was offered a job, whether it was to be that assistant SID, whether it was to be, someone's associate head coach, or whether it was the opportunity to be a head coach. I think that it was one of those where, the best thing, and I'll say this a million times, but the best thing for me was someone told me when I was younger, basically that big time's where you're at. And so I try to take that, and, it doesn't matter what your job is or how much money you're making. If this is what you really want to do, then wherever you are, you turn that place into what you want it to look like, whether it's the smallest level or the highest level. And so money or not, staff or not, resources, those types of things. It was always, there was a perception at every single place that I went. And so, like you said, I'll take your words. Be damned, I'm going to get to where I need to be.
Looking at your path, and we have met 6 minutes ago. Once upon a time, before I started doing all this, I was in the television industry and did sports. And my first job was in Augusta, Georgia. And I saw that
Oh,
when I
wow.
was at this Georgia Regents University, I was like, "What is that?" And I was like, "Oh, that's the old Augusta State." And so some Peach Belt pride there, dealing with Augusta State and USC Aiken and all that back in the day. Your time in Augusta, did we fall in love with golf? Did we? You can't drive a minute without stumbling over 3 golf courses down there.
Oh my gosh. It was a complete missed opportunity. So everybody's like, "Oh, if you could do it all over again, what would you do and where would you stop?" And well, it had nothing to do with the basketball and everything to do with the Masters, to be honest with you. So when I went there, it was Augusta State, and then my second year it turned into Georgia Regents, and like you said, everybody's like, "Where is that?" And so now they're back to Augusta. But so we had an opportunity as a staff and as our team to go out and set up the chairs that are on every single tee box at in the beginning of the Masters. Right, there's those two
Wow.
green chairs that you see on a
Yep.
TV. So the players took full advantage of it. Take their 2 chairs. They took their time. They walked the wrong fairway. They got into all this. They set the chairs down. They were looking for all the famous pros, and no, I'll let the team do it. I don't need to do that. I'll let the team do it. And looking back, however many years ago now that was, I'm like, ugh, that was one time you should have put yourself out there and said, "I want to do that. Too bad for you guys." So that's my biggest regret. I do like golf. I'm not great, but I like to do it. In the spare time that we do have. Excuse me. But that was a complete missed opportunity. So.
Sometimes you got to be a little selfish.
I know. I know. I'm
Sometimes.
I'm learning that along the ways. That's right. That whole nice guy finished last thing, I definitely felt last that day.
It's been a little more than 10 years. You got your first head coaching job at the AIB College of Business in Des Moines, Iowa. What did you learn? What did you not know that you didn't know? Just becoming a head coach for the first time, and I'm sure some sort of I've got all the answers, but sometimes the questions change on you.
Yeah, that was the most humbling experience I've ever been put through as a coach. There's days, you feel a little bit higher than others, and there's days you feel a little bit lower. But that had nothing to do with wins and losses, to be honest with you, because it wasn't. There were minimal wins. Let me tell you about that. But I saw it as an opportunity. I always knew that I wanted to be close to family, and that was right in Des Moines, and that's where my sisters are and family, and so that made sense. Taking it over, I thought I had a couple years to figure out what was needed to be done and the players that I needed to get in there, and I really thought, back in the day, when it was the MCC. I thought that we could compete. What was championship on the mind? No, but I thought, take this step, see what you don't know, figure it out, ask the right questions, and then see what's next. And so the reason it was such a humbling experience is because, one, I felt like we really made great strides as a team, wins or losses, just who we were. But in February, before our season was even over, at 10 a.m., the coaching staff in the athletics department was made aware that the University of Iowa bought out our business school, and we were AIB College of Business. And at 1 o'clock, it came out on the news. And so
Hmm.
we had, from the second that we left that meeting, to tell our team, "Hey, look, we're still in the middle of season, but you're not going to have another one. So let's do with what we can." We told the seniors, "Congratulations, you're going to graduate." We told everybody else that, if you don't want to transfer anywhere, you can finish out your degree and we'll teach you out. But that's it. So basically, it's been great. So that in that moment, it was way bigger than basketball. And I know people say that all the time, but it was a life-changing thing for me. That was my career. I had people on staff. We had a team full of players that we only had like 3 graduates, so everybody needed to find a new home. So that was what I didn't know about it was there are a lot more things that go into it than just X's and O's. And I think that that's where I started to change my mindset about how everything worked.
It's it's a cold business in a lot of ways, and it's a hard business. And, whether you have to almost look at it like, okay, I've been fired just because of
Right.
this, and I have to go. Now professionally, I'm in this scramble mode. Like, how did you handle that? How did you try to? And again, you're like, it's not even a true firing from like, okay, give me your keys. Like, you got to finish the season, but now I've got to go figure out what's next for me. How did you navigate all that?
And that was the second most humbling experience at that point because I thought, okay, I'm gonna have head coaching experience, and then hopefully the rest is up to me. It's what I do with that experience and where I can go. And it wasn't up to that. So I had to take a look at myself in the mirror and say, what do you need? And in that moment, I wasn't ready to be a head coach again, to be honest with you. We did not do very well. I didn't, it's like a player getting into the portal with no film, right? I had no film. I had no proof that I knew what I was doing. I had no proof that I could recruit because we didn't have a class that was coming in because we didn't have a second year. We only won a handful of games. And after January, it wasn't very pretty. And so I couldn't go and sell myself to anybody because there wasn't really anything to show for it. So I took a look in the mirror and I took a step back and I thought, I need to find a place that's going to allow me to grow. They're going to challenge me in different ways, but they're also going to be okay with giving me a few more duties that are closer to that head coaching experience. And I was fortunate enough to go to University of Wisconsin Parkside. And when I got there, Jacob Jorg, he basically handed half of the duties over. And by the second year, he named me, unbeknownst to me, he put me in an associate head coaching role. And that the year after that, I was back at, in a head coaching role at Clark. So there's a lot of things, everything happens for a reason. In that moment, I was like, why is this happening? But looking back, it was probably the best thing that happened.
How much more comfortable in your skin were you when you go to Clark and now you're a head coach for the second time? And look, it's a new school and all of that, but at the same time, it's not the first rodeo for you.
Well, I was 3 years older, and I think that helps too.
Yep.
I think that there's something to be said for that. I had a little bit more stability in what I liked and what I didn't like about X's and O's, the type of player I wanted to recruit and didn't want to recruit. And you know what? Kudos to Jacob Jorg for putting up with me and having all the questions and doing those types of things. But I think there was a coach in the past that has said, you're never prepared to move that one chair over. And I wasn't at the time. I jumped into that AIB job. And like you said, I thought that I can do this. Anybody can do this. But when I got to Clark, I felt a lot more prepared. I walked into a better situation, obviously, but it just put me in a spot where I felt like I could be who I wanted to be as a coach. And I think that really showed in the next handful of years.
Year 6, you win a national championship at the NAIA level. You won a national championship as a player once upon a time at Kirkwood. I know this is going to be like choosing between your children. Which one was more, I don't know if satisfying is the right word, maybe rewarding? Which one felt different, maybe on a better side as a player or as a coach?
Wow. The player one was just like, it was just my friends and I, and we were out there and we were just getting it done. Right. This is what we do. These are the expectations. Let's just get this thing done. And then we get to celebrate another win for us. I mean, in that season, we lost our very first game of the season and we didn't lose again. Right. So that would have been it was almost an expectation when we got to that point as players at Kirkwood. So I'm going to say as a coach, that was probably, I don't want to say more rewarding, but I was probably more grateful for it because, again, I was a little bit older, but also I think the more that you and I interact and the more that we learn about each other, it was more rewarding because I got to see the team from a different perspective.
Yeah.
I told myself that, in the locker room before the game, if we win this game, I'm going to take it all in. I'm going to make sure I give myself, 20 seconds before everything gets crazy. And so I remember at the end of that game, I put my head in my hands and I looked down and all I hear is the pop of the confetti and the screams. and I didn't even want to look up, you know?
Yeah.
And so it still gives me chills to think about today, because that group that you're looking at right now, it was a handful of fifth year seniors. They had started with us. That none of those players in that picture, you know, outside of three of them, they had been there for their entire career. It wasn't a big transfer thing, so a true family it was. And also, no, I don't think anybody ever thought that it was doable. We all did inside the locker room, but outside the locker room, it was like, well, they're just Clark. They'll be tough on some days and not so much on other days. So I think this one that you're looking at, that was a little bit more rewarding.
How did you get from there? And you made elite. You go to Division II and you go to Quincy. You've reached the mountaintop at that point. But what was that a planned decision, or sort of like the Valpo deal where somebody reached out to you and knocked on your door?
Yeah. I haven't been looking for the jobs that I've gotten, to be honest. I haven't been, you know, when I went to Clark, I got contacted by a couple of people, and then I thought, okay, maybe I talked to Jorg about it and I put my name in. That would have been the last time. So when I went to Quincy, it was 45 minutes from my hometown. So there was a little bit of a tie there. And Josh Raby reached out to me, and he had asked me, you know, we talked a couple of years ago and there were you had things going on. So what about now? And it just felt like the right time. You know, sometimes you reach the pinnacle at places. And again, I was fortunate enough to do that, but sometimes you reach the pinnacle and you know that it's time. And I had a really good conversation with my athletic director at Clark, and he felt the very same thing. But then I got that opportunity, and I hadn't heard from division. I was trying to get back into the NCAA world, and I hadn't heard from Division twos. I hadn't heard from Division threes. I mean, we did what we did at NAI, and it was like we were the redheaded stepchild. And so it was, okay, I can be closer to home. My hometown. I know what the GOVC is about. I think now's the time. So let's do this. And that's kind of where that all started. And a couple years later, I'm really glad I made the leap.
Great success, 10 wins in year one, but flipped it immediately. You get to 25 in year two, get to the NCAA tournament, and then the text message comes in that changes your life again. Where were you? What were you doing when you look down and you see this, get this text from a phone number? I assume you did not know who it was from.
So it's crazy to think, like you said, at Quincy, you know, we were able to do some things that hadn't happened in a really long time. We had beaten teams that we hadn't beaten in over 10 years. We were fortunate enough to get the accolades for the individuals and the teams that we were. And so it was 7 a.m. in the morning. It was actually, I'm pretty sure it was either 7:04 or 7:08 is what my text messages say. But it was 7 a.m. in the morning. So I was sitting with my two daughters, and I got a text message, and it said, you know, something to the effect of, Courtney, this is the athletic director at Valparaiso, and I heard you might be interested in this job. And I thought, who'd she hear that from? Because I don't even, like you said, I don't know this number. I had never been in contact with anybody from Valparaiso. And so from there, it went from Monday, we had two conversations. We talked in the morning, and we got back on the phone that evening. And then Tuesday, I got on the phone with the committee. And Wednesday, I was in the area, and Thursday, I had a choice to make. So it was a really quick process, and it's still a little bit surreal in how it all happened. And you know, you think when you're little and the older that you get, and you know, those types of things, like, I wonder if that's doable for me. I wonder if I can get there. I know that I want to be, but I wonder if I can do that. And so when this happened, it was one of those where you had to like reread the text message. Like,
Right.
am I being punked? You know? And so I think looking back on it now, she's a lot of the reason that I made the leap, that I felt like it was the right place at the right time.
You have been a head coach now. This is your fourth head coaching job. And when you walk in the door, there is always some holdover. There is going to be some new, and you have to find a way to mesh all of that together. What is the biggest challenge in maybe not even as much year one of a head coaching job, but month one, month two, just trying to lay the groundwork for hopefully a successful season ahead?
You know, the one thing that I've really learned is they don't care what your title is. I mean, they're 18 to 22. Some people are 25, but they're 18 to 22. And They don't care. They don't care. They do a little bit. They care where you've come from and, what you like about the team and what you're trying to build. They do want to know that, but it doesn't matter to them what your title is. And so the hardest thing, I think, is getting to know them in a short amount of time and making it genuine. Who are you? Why did you choose here? What are you about and what are your goals? And we had less than 2 weeks to do that together. And so then while I was figuring them out, then I was trying to figure out not only what X's and O's positions we were missing, but what personalities were we missing? You can only have my personal opinion, you can only have so many studs on the team, or else it gets a little ugly, right? And so who already thought that they would fill that role? Who did we lose? What positions do we need? And then what's that personality of Valpo? Because I think, recruiting to Quincy is going to be different than Valpo, and recruiting at Clark was different than Quincy. And so I'm trying to figure out all of that in a short amount of time. And then boom, here we are Monday the 5th, and it's a shutdown. So I can't talk to anybody. So I think that the hardest part about it is keeping it genuine and truly getting to know what they're about and why they're here. Because if someone comes in and wins a championship in that first year, that's an incredible feat, honestly. And I think that we like to keep it realistic, and everybody wants a championship and to win as many games as possible. But the quicker we can make those relationships and we can build that trust, then we know where to fill the voids. And then the easier it is, and I say easier, but the easier it is to put them on the floor and tell them, like, this is why we want you to set this screen, instead of, hey, this is what we're going to do. This is the screen we're going to set. This is the defense we're going to run. And, oh, by the way, I kind of care about you. So I think that that's my favorite part, but I also think that's the hardest part.
I don't know if this was a Pat Summitism or it's they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. That's exactly right.
Sort of a guiding principle there. You have gone from the NAIA level, Division II, now to Division I, and stop me if I'm wrong. I'm going to presume there's not a whole lot of NIL concerns down at the Division II and NAIA level. Now at Division I, it's just the job is different in a lot of ways. And certainly in the women's game, there's not as much money as we hear all the time coming through the men's game. But have you leaned on anybody, been mentored by anybody of just about, and whether it's the NIL portion or just it's Division I now, maybe, the basketball is the basketball, but just all the outside stuff that goes with the job?
Yeah, I think you have to. I think if someone were to sit here and, you ask that question and they're like, no, I figured it out on myself, I'd be like, wow, that's impressive. You don't have enough time to read. You don't have enough time to, we all make excuses as coaches. We're all so busy. Well, everyone's busy, right? You make time for what you make time for. But I do think that I have realized the importance of the connections that I've made in the past and the people, the trust that I've built in other coaches, because we're all working towards the same thing. Right. And so it used to be, well, I was just at NAIA, so I could reach out to any NCAA coach and ask the questions, and we weren't recruiting the same kids and we weren't doing those things. Well, now some of those people that I reach out to, right, they're Division I. It might be a P4 or it might be, a different conference or something like that, but we're all competing for the same thing at this, at the same time. And so I have figured out that I really am grateful for the relationships that I've made because of that. And when I was at other places, I didn't need to learn things as fast because there weren't as many extra things to learn. So there have definitely been a handful of people that I've reached out to, and that trust. And I think that there's always a competitive piece, but if they know that you're coming from like, hey, how does this work? Or what's the rule? We've reached out to a lot of people of like, what's the date and who can we talk to? Where does that go? Right. And I don't even have any, one or two people specifically, but I just think that being able to pick up the phone and having that genuine response of them knowing that, hey, I don't want your job and I don't want your players. I just want to know what the rule is. And they write back, and they're not trying to tell me the wrong rule to put me in a bad spot. And I think that the game has grown a little bit in that way. because in the past it used to be like my stuff is my stuff and I'm not sharing it with you. And now there's so much media and there's so many things that if we don't share, I think we'd be a little silly for that. So individual names of who I've reached out to, I would have to pull up my phone and say who the last 10 people were, but I'm super grateful for the people that have been able to respond and kind of help me stay afloat.
I believe, if my math is right, this morning on the roster page, you guys have 9 kids right now. You've had one player that played with you at Quincy that has publicly committed to come play for you. We don't need to talk about her, but there's still work to be done roster wise. What is your mission and focus, I think, right now here in the next couple of weeks before summer practices start?
Yeah, that's a great question. And yes, you are correct. We have tried to keep some consistency in people that I've recruited in the past or people I was, talking to on a stretch level at Quincy and things like that. I think that consistency, and I think that that's really important, the comfortability for everyone. But we're not big enough. I think that that's the biggest thing right now is we're a little undersized. And when you're undersized, you got to be quicker. You have to have a niche for different things of what you're doing. And so we're looking for a little bit of length. Whether that's back to the basket or athleticism, that's probably the biggest thing that we're missing. And I don't think that that's a secret to anybody. The people that we graduated and the people, that hopped in the portal before I got here, and then those that are returning, and whether they played multiple minutes or not, I think, that's the biggest thing is we bring in another 5'7" guard, right? There are teams in this conference that we're not even gonna sniff a 10-point game. And so we also have to fit a system, and they have to be able to run the floor. We want to, every coach in 2025 wants to play fast, but the way that we run our transition is important. And so I think they, 1 through 5, they need to be able to run the floor. And then we need to figure out what we look like defensively and where everybody fits into that. What's the best meal you've had since going to Valpo? Oh man. I will say 10 out of 10 for the restaurants here. So I know that everybody's like, oh, it's Valpo and it's small and it's this and it's not the city. But I'm right now, I think, let's see, I did have shrimp tacos at a place downtown, and the sauce on those shrimp tacos I'm telling you, I know the thing with the players now is like, well, what is it? So I'm going to tell them it's 10 out of 10. All right. Awesome. Courtney Boyd, this has been wonderful. Thank you. I kept you a little longer than I promised, but I appreciate the conversation very much today. And I feel as bad as anything because it's a quiet week for you. Get a little breather time. But thank you for the time, and congratulations again. And hopefully we'll be able to talk soon. Jeff, thanks for having me. I really appreciate this. All right, thank you. There is Coach Courtney Boyd. As you always see this when coaches take new jobs, and unfortunately the families get left behind and you feel awful for them, but hopefully be able to get reunited with everybody here soon enough. So she is a builder. She has built, and when she went to Quincy, it was a program that was doing okay. They were an above average, 17, 18, 19, but then it was 20, 23, 25, 26. Hey, let's go win a national championship in year 6. Flipped it very quickly again at Quincy. I said at Quincy, at Clark when she did that 6-year run and ended with a national championship at Quincy to go from 10 wins to 25 and get into the NCAA tournament in year 2. Boy, the folks at Valpo would do backflips, cartwheels, the whole 9 yards if they're able to get into the NCAA tournament in year 2. But she has had a great career so far, and we'll see how she can do with the Beacons. So coming up on Wednesday on this fine program, Allison Pullman, the head coach of the Drake Bulldogs, will be with us as we will talk again about sort of a new era in Des Moines as Katie Dinnebier, Anna Miller, and the gang have all moved on and graduated and on to the next phase of life. But a new wave coming behind is the standard 5 NCAA tournament trips in 9 years at Drake and trying to get back next season. So we'll talk with Allison Pullman, and we will also talk with the commissioner, Jeff Jackson of the Missouri Valley Conference. A lot to get to with the commissioner about the state of the game, the state of the NCAA tournament, and the state of the Missouri Valley Conference. We will hopefully answer all the questions you may have with the commish coming up on Wednesday morning. Again, if you have not headed on over to YouTube yet, just go search Morning in the Valley, subscribe, like it, share it with all your Valley loving friends, and let's help keep this
program continuing to grow here as we approach, or we are now officially in to month 2 of Morning in the Valley. Thanks for being with us today, wherever you've been with us on X, Facebook, YouTube. I very much appreciate you hanging out with us this morning, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 9 a.m. So we'll be back on Wednesday. Until then, have a great Monday, everybody, and thanks for watching. Morning.